Okay, thank you to everyone for joining this webinar. My name is John Evans, and I'll be covering how to enter in competitive balance for your student athletes. This webinar was designed specifically for the Ohio High School Athletic Association member schools and does not cover competitive balance practices for other state athletic organizations. Before we begin, I'd like to make a quick statement regarding this presentation. For the purposes of instruction on this video, we have built a mirror account from an existing Ohio high school, but we'll be uploading fictional data to that account. None of the information displayed on this screen should be taken as actual OHSAA student-athlete information. So with that disclaimer out of the way, I'd like to begin with reviewing how to add students to your ArbiterGame account. For today's presentation, I'm going to focus on importing students to your account and then importing those students onto a team roster with competitive balance information. So if you'd like a more detailed presentation on all the ways to add students to your account, please visit our support site and check out the Adding Students and Competitive Balance webinar that was recorded earlier. That does cover in depth the various ways to add students to the account and is a great resource for more information there. So before we begin giving students a competitive balance, it's important to remember we first need to have students in our ArbiterGame account. So to do so, go ahead and click on your Students tab located on this black tab ribbon up near the top of your screen. And then click on the New Student dropdown over here on the upper right-hand side. You'll notice that there's two options here for Import Students and Import Students Teams. The Import Students Teams roster can only be performed when you are using students who already exist in your account. So we're going to start with the Import Students button here. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And it'll bring us to the Import Students page. So the first thing we want to do is we want to download a template to use for uploading our students. So we'll go ahead and click on this Download Template button. This is going to generate an ArbiterGame approved upload template. And I'm going to pull up a partially completed version of that template right here. Give me just one moment. Excuse me, I'm just trying to get it pulled up over here. Okay, there we go. All right, so as you can see, the import template comes with a lot of pre-organized columns for you to fill out information on your students. And let me quickly get this view a little bit bigger. So at the top of each column, we have a column header with information on what to put in for that column for your students' information. So for example, if you hover your mouse over a column header, you're going to see this tooltip that pops up indicating what kind of information you need to put in. So some of the required information is we need the student ID, the first name and the last name, and the graduating year and gender of the student. There is plenty of room for additional information such as the email address, birth date, address, phone number, emergency contact information, and then student tracking data such as the date of their last physical, their physician name, their consents and their waiver forms, and items for that. That is for you to put in date stamps to automatically import that information in. But for the purposes of adding students, the only required information that we have here is the student ID, the first and last name, the graduating year, and the gender. So with these 4 example students that we've got here, we've got their student IDs, and for their graduating year, we know that they are graduating in 2018 this summer. They are seniors. So we're going to go ahead and add this information. So I'm going to go ahead and save this information to my computer so I can prepare to import it. And it's important that when you are saving, that you are saving it in the format of an Excel 97 to 2003 workbook. This is the exact same format that we use when you download the template. Just go ahead and save it in that same format. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to call it our high school student import. I'm going to save that. And then we're going to return to the import students page. I'm going to click on the choose file button, and I'm going to select my high school student import, and I'm going to click the upload button, and I'm going to let it begin the process of uploading those students. Now, since I only had 4, it was a relatively fast process. The more students that you have, the more information that needs to be uploaded. But you can see this counter down at the bottom that indicates I correctly uploaded 4 students and that I didn't have any failures because all of the information that I had was accurate. So now that we've got those students in our system, we can go back to the Students tab, and we can now import them onto student teams. So I'm going to click on this Import Students Teams button here. And once again, we have the opportunity to download a template from ArbiterGame that comes pre-populated with information that we need. So I'm going to click on the Download Template button. We're going to open that up. And once again, using the magic of television, I'm going to pull up a pre-populated spreadsheet. Now, as you can see, the Student Teams import spreadsheet is a lot simpler. And it only has 6 columns that are really important for the purposes of importing the student onto the team. That's because our system connects the student ID. I'm just going to actually fix these and move these over here. But like I said, our system connects the student ID with the student information. And so any other peripheral information that you've put in for a student, such as their waivers and their eligibilities and their physical dates or any other kind of information like that, it's automatically accounted for when you're importing students with this information. So all I need to do now is I need to put in the information for the team that these students are on. So for the school year, now I'm going to go ahead and put in the current school year. This is a common mistake that happens here is that athletic directors will sometimes put in the student's graduation year, but in this case we were talking about the current school year for this team. We're going to put in the 2017 to 18 school year for all of these students. And then we are going to select what team that they are a part of. Now this spreadsheet comes pre-populated with the teams from your account. So you can click on this pull-down menu over on the right-hand side of the cell, and you can select the team that you want to put these students on. In this case, I want to select the varsity football team. I'm just going to search down this menu until we come to football. And here we go. We've got boys varsity football. And then I can do a couple of things. I can once again go through this process of selecting football from the pull-down menu, or I can copy the information by clicking on the lower right-hand corner, clicking and dragging, and it will copy the same information for that team down to my next cells. And a good way to check to make sure that you are using the proper team, so you can click on the pull-down menu, and if it has the team highlighted in blue here, you know that there's no spelling errors, there won't be any entry errors here. Now the final thing on the student teams import is we can put in their competitive balance tier. Now in the state of Ohio, competitive balance is measured in terms of tiers with 4 available options. So I can click on the cell, and I can select if the student is a tier 0 enrolled student, Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 2 non-enrolled. So I'm going to go ahead and select a couple of tiers for them just to give us a good spread. And now we've got all of the information that we need to go ahead and import these teams. So we can go ahead and save the file. Once again, we want to be able to save the file in an Excel 97-2003 workbook format. That is the same default format for when you download the template. This will make sure that it is compatible with our uploader when you send in the information. So actually what I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to fix a couple of items here. And then I'm going to finish saving it. While I'm doing this, feel free to go ahead and start posting any questions in the question box on your presentation toolbar. We'll be able to refer to those a little bit later on to answer any questions that may have been missed or any clarification that might be needed. Okay, so now that I'm ready to save, we're going to come back to the Import Students Teams page, and we are going to select the file from my desktop. We're going to, and then we're going to go ahead and upload it. Now, what we should see in this situation is a similar counter to when we imported the students. We should see a successful upload of the students. Now, we see here that I've got a couple of failed records, which is what I was kind of preparing off screen. So now we can kind of see what might be going on here. So I see that I've got these 3 students. There was an error here, and as you can see with the school year, as I was trying to copy down the information for what the school year was, it was putting in an incorrect counter. None of these school years are recognized. So I'm going to come back to my spreadsheet, and I'm going to fix that situation. So I'm going to select from the pull-down menu. This is why we always recommend to use these pull-down menus next to the cells. And I'm going to change it back to 2017 to 18. This is an example of a common mistake that can happen with people who are filling out these spreadsheets. Excel loves to try and guess what information you put in, and it's called an autofill tool. And it can run into issues like this. So I'm going to resave it, and I am going to re-upload the file just to make sure I do it right. I'm going to return to the students page, click on the Import Students Teams, select the file, and upload. And as you can see in this case, since I fixed the student year, we now see that we correctly imported all the students onto the team. So now what we can do is I can go to my teams, and I can go down to my varsity football team, select it, and I can click on the roster tab, and I can see that I have all of these students correctly on the team. Now, if I want to see information like their competitive balance, Oh, I'm sorry. This is just to see like their information for their class. If I want to see their competitive balance, I can return to the Students tab, and I can click on the sub-tab for competitive balance. And you'll see that it pulls up the football team. I can select for the school year, and I can select my sport here from the competitive balance sports that are available. And I can see my students here on the team. Now, if I had any questions or anything that I wanted to fix, I can see, when the students were imported, and I can see the deadline that I have for finalizing the information. Once this deadline is passed, these tiers will not be able to be edited. So I can come back here and I can say that Nick is actually not a Tier 0 level student, but he actually qualifies as Tier 2 non-enrolled. So I can go ahead and change that information, and then I can click on the Save button here over on the lower right-hand side. It'll give me the pop-up message saying that I've updated these student records, and then I can return back to any other business that I might need to take care of in the account. So with that in mind, that is the general process of how you can quickly upload students onto your account. So far, we've taken about 15 minutes to do this. It's a very fast process. It's a very simple process, and you should be able to get all of your students enrolled for the sports that have competitive balance. Once again, not every sport needs competitive balance. There are only specific sports that are set up by the Ohio High School Athletic Association that require competitive balance for enrollment tracking purposes. If you have any questions about what sports require competitive balance or what tiers qualify for a specific student, I recommend that you contact the Ohio High School Athletic Office for more information regarding that process. If you do have any questions about how to upload specific students onto your ArbiterGame account or how to use the importer tool and you need additional help with that, please feel free to contact our support staff. They are well trained in importing students, and they'd be happy to help you with any questions that you might have. You can contact them at 1-800-311-4060. So with that in mind, we'll go ahead and wrap up the presentation as far as the presentation portion, and I'd like to open it up for any kinds of questions. And to kind of kick that off, I'd like to mention a couple of questions that have come up in the past regarding competitive balance. One common question that we get is my school has students who are only enrolled in a homeschool program, but they participate in sports through our school. They may not necessarily have a student ID. What should I do in that situation? So like I said at the beginning, the students do need to have some sort of value filled out in their student ID field. So if you have students who are homeschooled, but they come to your school to participate in sports, and they are eligible to participate in sports through your school, my recommendation is to come up with at least some sort of temporary alternative student ID rubric that you can base your information off of. For example, if you needed to put something, just like I did with my import today, if you needed to change it to like a 1001 or some other device for differentiating homeschooled students versus class enrolled students, like I said, we do need a student ID information. We use this field to help prevent duplicate imports for students, so it's very important that we have the student ID filled out. And I believe, and also we do have a note from the state office saying that you can use whatever ID that you would like. It's just important to be consistent with that. And so that's the recommendation that we roll with. If you have a homeschooled student and you give them an ID of 1001, just make sure that you keep using that ID for that student in the future, and that you follow a similar pattern for any other homeschool students that you might deal with. It should be a unique number, but it should follow the same rule. And then a similar question that we've got here, does the student ID come from our DASL program or our school user? Do we make one up? I would recommend that you use the official student ID that you use at your school. That will be helpful for tracking both at the state office level and for your athletic department files. You should definitely use the student ID number that you have on file. That's what that field is meant to track. Okay, and while we're waiting for some additional questions, we're getting some great ones here. I'll go ahead and just walk through manually adding a student to your account here, which we covered on a previous webinar, but we've got some time here, so I'll go ahead and cover that as well. So on the student page, we do have a couple of items that are required. First name, last name, and gender. We use the gender to help set what teams that they could be qualified for. So it is important to include that information. So we'll use one of my coworkers as an example here. We'll just put in his information here, and we'll just set his birthday as today. We'll give him. We already have 1001 as a student ID, so we'll give him 1005. Set his graduation year as this summer, and then. This other information is not required, but it is certainly available for you to fill out. Since we want him to be a valid student athlete, we're going to say that his class requirements are up to date, as is his physical. And then if we wanted to track information like when they last got the physical date, we could say that they got that in early August. And that was also the same time when they were confirmed eligible. And we'll just say that we received their parental waiver at that time as well. And then for their enrollment date, we'll go back to June. And then if we want, I can also fill out sport history for this student. Let's see if I can get the screen to pull up on this mirror account here. Actually, that tool might not be available on this test account that I have. But we can also put in their address information, their emergency contact information. And then we can also say their doctor name and a contact phone number for that doctor. We can also then include any notes that are necessary for any ArbiterGame users for this school's account. And then we can also, before we can put them on a student team, we then have to save that student. So I'll click on the Save button here. And now I can look up that student by their last name. Actually, I think I should be able to get sport history working now. Okay, yeah, so I can put in the student's sport history. This is basically just a tool to put in previous year's participation. So I'll say that last year they were on the JV football team. And I'll say they've done 3 seasons of football so far. So I'll just go ahead and save that. I can also say that I can also come down to their student teams and I can put them on the actual roster for when they were a junior. They're on the JV squad. I can put in their position if I need to. It's not required. I could put in their tier. However, last year's competitive balance is closed, so I won't be able to put that in. So I can include that information. Actually, I think putting in previous year's information will be initially blocked by the competitive balance restrictions from previous years, since those are all closed. So I would say if you do need to put in previous year information for a competitive balance required team, contact Arbiter support at 1-800-311-4060. So I'll go ahead and save that student, and we'll return to the competitive balance page. All right, we'll go ahead and hold this open for any additional questions that are coming through. Feel free to post those as needed.